You mentioned that you use V0 for AI prototyping. How has AI changed your design
Mhm.
workflow?
It actually felt like cheating. I didn't want to use it initially, but then when I started using it, I don't know, I feel like I have a team of 50 people or more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of Humans in the Loop, our video series here at Human Managed. I'm Deborah, an intern at the Singapore office, and today we have Chiqui, who is at our Manila office, here to talk to us about visualization and design ops with the context of AI. Hi, Chiqui.
Hello.
Nice to have you on the series today.
Thank
So,
you.
tell us about your role and what you do at Human Managed.
I am the head of design ops, and what that really means is I bridge design and operations to ensure our teams deliver consistent, scalable, and impactful user experiences. So, my core responsibilities center on two areas. So, first is to actually build a system that would produce what its consumers need. So, consumers like content creators or, whoever, like stakeholder who wants to publish something in our apps. Another part of my job is to design data driven dashboards or conversations, so for chat, that go beyond metrics. So something that would make a good story. And by a good story, that's something that's actionable, something that would solve the specific user's problems.
Okay, so what's your background and how did you end up designing for data and AI platforms specifically?
I started my career in on a very different path. I actually studied to become a teacher, and that's why I ended up getting my PhD in Applied Linguistics. My pivot into tech began was conversation designer, and at that time, I believe it was a new role. And if you look it up at that time, it was scary because really weren't a lot of positions that would describe what that job entailed.
So I think it's really interesting how you mentioned you actually have a PhD in linguistics, which I think is
Yeah.
so like on at first glance it's so vastly different from data science, AI, tech,
Mhm.
which is actually also in line with the trend we've seen from the episode so far, which is that a lot of
Yes.
the people at Human Managed are not actually from traditional tech backgrounds.
Correct.
But I think that actually is an advantage because then you bring a
Mm.
new perspective into what you do. You started off by having the, I guess, maybe intention of designing chat,
Mm.
applying that linguistics
Mm.
knowledge to designing conversations, right?
Mhm.
But how would you say that designing for data platforms is different from traditional design work that you may have experienced in a different industry?
It's hard to compare how like a traditional design job is, since this is my first design stint. But what I can say is for working for a data platform really opens your eyes. And yeah, initially I thought, this is so far from like my background. But in reality, when somebody comes up to me and says, oh, we have this use case, we need to build a dashboard or um, yeah, design a page for it, it's very similar to like a thesis or a dissertation. It's one big effort of really knowing what the problem statement is. When I was teaching, it was first of all, okay, submit your problem statements. Like what do you want to solve? And then you tell them, okay, from this problem statement, refine them into more granular questions. And after that, the next step is find relevant sources. Give me 10 sources that would support how you're going to solve this problem. So it's really the same as what we do in Human Manage. Yeah, sometimes it starts with the data source. Like, okay, we have these sources, what can we get out of it? It's really more efficient when you know what you want to solve. And that also limits the sources that we need. solve those problems.
Mhm.
And I think Salim had a talk last week where he said data hoarding does not equate to insights. The reason why many companies collect data is, it's for the just in case, but we really have to be intentional about what we want to solve. And when that happens, everything just flows seamlessly. It's more efficient that way, and we're very mindful, and we have that intent of we know what to show.
So actually, what you said about making it seamless, and especially your point about how more data doesn't mean more quality. So is it like quality over quantity, right? It kind
Mm.
of ties into my next question, which was in our discovery call, well, this is may not be an exact quote, but you said something along the lines of how you are designing how the story is going to be told, and I
Mm.
think that is very relevant to what you just said about how you make it seamless, how you make it efficient.
Right.
So how can you walk us through a specific example of how raw data outputs become a compelling visual story, especially because you mentioned that you're designing for whatever the end user wants to see, and the end user may not have the technical background to understand the content, right? So
Mm.
how do you kind of transform that into something that's easily understandable for them?
So the technical part we try as much as possible not to like surface, but and sometimes it's hard to really get out what they want from the data that they have. So normally they have this vision like, okay, I want a Netflix style dashboard, and then just show me what like how I can be inspired. So it's really vague like that. And but how will this help you in your workflows? Is there anything that you want to speed up? Um, and when you kind of dig deeper into why they're asking for that, then the design becomes clear. That okay, I need to build something for them to be able to decide what to do. So, for example, in that Netflix style dashboard request or ask, I realized their project officers were having a hard time coming up with ideas um, or proposals to address specific country vulnerabilities or problems. But in the first act, it was not framed like that at all. And you have to understand, like, okay, um, how do you usually do it? Like, um, what platform do you use to search? And then when you have what you need, what do you do next? So it's really step by step, and thinking about how the platform would enable them to do that work much faster.
Sometimes what they say they want is not what they actually want, and they don't even know what they actually want.
Yeah.
They have this idea, right?
Mm.
You are able to identify what they actually need slash want because you have the expertise, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
really the client's fault, it's just maybe a matter of like refining and fine-tuning,
Yes.
narrowing down what's their goal with the output,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So in all that, how do you balance making data accessible without oversimplifying it? Because in your example of the
Mm.
Netflix dashboard, when I think of a Netflix dashboard, I think of a lot of visuals. I think of thumbnails. I think of
Yes.
like a lot of colors and a lot of pictures. How and
Correct.
but at the same time, the data that you are processing and analyzing for them is very critical data.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like cybersecurity or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. So how do you do it in a way that gets the severity and importance of the information across,
Mm-hmm.
but is also in line with what they want visually?
So yeah, sometimes we need to explain or the rationale behind the change in the requirement. Sometimes that works. Sometimes we make it work. So with that requirement, we still delivered it the Netflix style way, but how we design what's next. So when you click on that thumbnail, what comes next is something that would actually um, get them to do their work much faster, because the information that they need when they conduct their research from multiple sources are already there, because we created a recommendation engine. The information that they need to actually create a proposal for a specific sector recommendation to solve a problem is already there, and then the call to action is to actually just auto generate the report from that information. We try not to limit the content too much, because as what I said, we start with the problem that they have. And in human management, we have this, explain, explore pages, where which actually means when the intent of the page is to explain, we're telling you how you're going to solve that problem. But in an explore type of page, we show you the possibilities. Like, here's how we've built that engine. Go explore yourself, and maybe you'll find a different problem that you want to solve from that raw data.
Thank you for explaining that. I think that gives it a lot more clarity on how the process of your designing the data and presenting it in a way that is both what the client wants and in that general direction, but at the same time it's maintaining the integrity of your craft in a sense, right? Because you don't want to compromise on the quality of what you're giving them just so that it like 100% is what they are looking for, like specifically.
Yeah.
So moving on to the topic of AI, because AI is like super hot right now.
Yes.
You mentioned that you use V0 for AI prototyping. How has AI changed your design workflow? Because I think everybody's curious about, is AI gonna take my job? How's AI affecting my job? So talk to
Yeah.
us about how AI has affected the way you work.
Yeah, I had a blog post about this recently where I just poured my heart into it and said it actually felt like cheating. I didn't want to use it initially, but then when I started using it, I don't know, I feel like I have a team of 50 people or more. It's really it made my work much faster. You really have to change the way you thought about design before, because it's from bottom up, it's now top down, whereby you do this, and then suddenly the entire thing is ready all at once. So I find it more like math. So it's really subtracting, take out what you don't want from it, and then add what you want, or suddenly it's multiplication. I like this page, create another one, and but this time, tweak this and that. Yeah, I try to experiment with other tools, AI tools. V0 we use if we want a really quick deployment. It's good at handling data management or data flows. If I want to experiment or see how a different AI tool would do it, yeah, and then I try that and see which would generate the best results. Yeah.
So on that note, what specific design decisions can you leave up to AI or have AI assist you greatly with versus where you absolutely need human judgment? Because I think this will bring kind of focus onto which parts of your role need the human touch. And because you mentioned that you use AI to 10x yourself, which is great. I mean, I use it in my work here as well to
Right.
automate a lot of
Yeah.
things. But I think when people think of design, a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, assume that humans need to have a part in it, which I think they do. But talk to us about what specifically you still need to manually accomplish.
Yeah, the bulk of the work is really putting in the context, or the aesthetic that you want it to produce. Some tools allow you to do that, like with Figma. They have this new feature release whereby you can add context, like the design system that you have built. You can ask it to incorporate, so that what it produces actually takes into consideration the number of years you've built your design system on. So that context actually reduces the amount of human judgment that you need to make. At the end of it all, it's you need humans to validate the output, because sometimes, even if you say, okay, design it based on like this data set. Sometimes it really doesn't follow designing the flows how you want it. So it's the first output is there, but you have to tell it um, the call to action. Yeah, what design it based on what the goal of the user is.
How would you say that working with AI outputs has changed how you think about design systems? Because you've talked to us about the fact that you do use AI and then what you use AI for,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure that it's not, I mean, the things that AI does for you and the things that it doesn't do are not completely separate. So how would you say that using AI has changed, if it has changed your
Mm-hmm.
perspective on how you view this whole design process?
Hasn't really changed how I think about design systems, but it has, I guess, reinforced my belief in the need in the system that it's really needed, because as of now it's really hard to find an AI that would make you that entire system at once, because that system is really built on context, and you can't ask AI to do that. And that's why the design system is fed into like those prompts, because that's the identity of your brand. Like for us at Human Managed, the brand guidelines, the design system, that's the identity that you want to feed into the AI. So if the question is, do you still need a design system if you already have AI? Then the answer is still yes.
I think that's very reassuring to hear. Um, in all the interviews I've done so far, that has been the common consensus that
Mm-hmm.
you still need humans in that in the role, which I think, yeah, like I said, it's very reassuring. It kind of brings, I think it brings comfort to some people knowing that humans are not gonna be completely removed from the
Yeah.
process. So how do you design for different user types?
Mm-hmm.
From data scientists to business executives, different types of clients, maybe in different industries even, using the same underlying data and sticking to the same principles.
Yeah, when we ask questions here, usually we say, okay, what hat am I wearing? And the same goes with designing for different personas. So you really wear the hat of that person and think about, um, empathize with that persona, and think about what motivates them. Um, so usually, if it's more strategic, it's more like what benefit can I get out of it? How can I increase my market share? Usually it's like that, and which engineers typically don't think about. So they're more low level. For engineers, you give them a data grid or a table, they're very happy with it. They're very happy to explore like what would make them happy, what would make them engaged.
So as AI becomes more sophisticated at generating, sorry, visualizations, like you said, there's different things to consider, right? It's like what the client actually needs, who the client is, or what kind of data you're working with. And you seem to have a very solid philosophy on, the data's the foundation, and then you have your belief in design systems, and then you kind of like integrated those together. So how do you see the designer's role evolving? Because I mean, in the design space is more arts-ish, I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
Um, there's AI art, there's people who just, and then a picture comes up, and then it's like, wait, but there are people who like paint, and there are people who draw. So
Yeah.
in the next like 5, 10 years, like how do you think that the role of designers will change?
As a designer of a system, I think it's going to be the same. uh, it's just going to be faster. Like if I could imagine um, doing what I did to build the system like 5 years ago, it would have been really fast. Because I'd have someone to ask. Like, I can ask Claude, like for this component, for this, like let's say for a button, what variants or what other possibilities can I make? Is it filled? Is it outlined? Things like that. What are the different sizes do I need? But back then it was just me doing that. So in building a system, it would be much faster, definitely. And then for designing dashboards, it's really being a validator of the output that's provided to you. Um, for the more visual kind of design though, um, I think it needs more work. I tried prompting for images. It's more difficult actually. It's a different kind of it's a different level of specificity. If I may say, like, don't make it too stock imagery or something. So I think it's still it's I don't know. We'll wait for the progress for at least for hand drawn images, things like that. Yeah.
Just like you said that there will always be a human role. I think hearing that, you know, AI art and visualization has a long way to go, which I mean it does.
Mm-hmm.
Except that, like, have you seen those Grok like
Mm.
videos where they have like fake
Yes.
broadcasters, and it's so I find it kind of scary.
Yes.
I guess it's more like simpler animation
Mm-hmm.
and art, but I guess in your context, it's not as advanced yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But keeping that in mind, that it may get very advanced, what advice would you give to designers who want to work in the data and AI space?
Be very open minded. It's not an easy job, but very fulfilling. Initially, I thought that, design, you'd have your own, you'll be in your own, space. But with my experience, it's really talking to everyone. Like, oh, okay, what sources do we have? Like, what's the analysis that's been done? Um, what data is available? Sometimes you've designed the end state, like, okay, this is how I want it to be, but then it at the end of it, it becomes like the scope changes. It's more refined, or it's different from the way like you envisioned it to be, because the reality is it's not perfect. So you design for how you want it, and then you monitor how it will evolve to that, and you have to make sure that the end state is will always be that end state, because yeah, it's there's the ideal, but then you start with a very simple one, and then you work with everyone to make sure it gets to that ideal.
Thank you for the advice, even though I'm not in design, but I think somebody out there hearing this is probably thinking about that and can take that into consideration. I think it's very good advice because, especially
Mhm.
coming from somebody who didn't have a design or tech background per se, and then you kind
Yes.
of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you pretty much just kind of learned on the job and just adapted as you went. And I think that is very similar to what you just said about how you have this idea, but you have to be open minded because you don't know. Like, even for myself, coming to this, I thought I was just gonna talk on camera and make videos with people. I've been doing a lot more than that. So, okay,
Right.
my last question for today.
Hmm.
What's one thing about data-driven design that you wish more people understood?
It's, I guess, that you need to understand the data also. It's not just, okay, give me a chart. What do you really want to say? And what's going to back that data up? Or what's going to back that, you know, visualization, will I be able to, do I have the data to render that visualization? Because it's data driven, you really need the data. um, you can't say I don't understand it, or I don't, that's not my job. It's understanding the data um, is essential for you to thrive in the data, as a data designer, I guess.
Okay, so thank you for making time out of your day to talk to me. I think it was very, very educational for anybody watching this as well as myself, because I, up to today pretty much, have never had an in-depth conversation with a data designer. I didn't even know that the job existed. So yeah, I think it
Welcome
was
to
very
the
enriching for me, and just having this conversation actually also opened up my perspective. We also covered very relevant topics such as like AI in design and art, which I think is very hot right now. Like, a lot of people are talking about it.
yeah.
So thank you for like sharing your perspective as somebody in the tech industry who also does design. I think that's a very unique combination of things. And to the people watching, if you made it all the way here, thanks. Give a like, subscribe. We will be posting videos. We post videos every single Monday, so stay tuned for that. And we've got more interesting people coming up. So yeah, bye.
Bye.